Now that I've reviewed every episode in Series 2, in this video I'm going to rank them in order of the scores that I awarded them, just as I did with the first series. Keep in mind this is all my opinion, and I expect your list might look very different to mine. Leave your episode rankings in the comments, I'd be interested to see how yours compares. One other note I must add is that I'll be ranking the Christmas specials in a separate video at a later date, so the Christmas Invasion will be not included on this list. Without further ado, here is my episode ranking for Series 2. In 13th place is Fear Her, written by Matthew Graham. Lacking any originality and exhibiting a serious deficiency of humour or any real memorable moments, it's hard to recommend this episode to anyone, and in my opinion this is truly one of the worst episodes to grace the new series. It is extremely mediocre at best, and for me is the worst episode of Series 2. In the number 12 spot is Love and Monsters. This episode is a pretty bold experiment for the show, and a pretty ingenious way of working around a production restriction to give it its due credit. It's not everything that it could be, but it's notably weaker than the later Doctor Light episodes, but it's still an experiment that was well worth attempting, and actually I'm very glad they did, and it does pay off quite well. Especially as it laid down the foundation of future stories without the lead characters, and for that I'm really grateful. That said, many things in this episode are actually quite inexcusable and rather cringeworthy to say the least, and that's why it's at this spot in the ranking. Number 11 is the Series 2 opener, New Earth. A very weak opener to Series 2, and not an episode I return to regularly, and for good reason. It proposes some very intriguing questions, but never actually dares to answer them, and just needed a little more polish than the finished article itself. Taking the number 10 spot on this ranking is The Idiot's Lantern. With credentials like this, it's a shame this episode doesn't hang together better than it does. Written by Mark Gatiss, directed by one of New Who's finest directors in Euros Lyn, and featuring an evocative location, a villain played by Maureen Lipman, and lots of scary bits. But like the two-parter that precedes it, it's just an awkwardness mess in both the script and presentation that holds it back from any real greatness. On a scene-by-scene basis, it can actually be quite good, although Lipman is completely wasted in an empty role here. Stitching all these genres together, however, is an uncomfortable experience, and actually is a massive shame. The episode does certainly have its moments, with some very great high concepts in there, but just doesn't have the conviction to really excel. At number 9 is the second part of the Cybermen two-parter, The Age of Steel. It's far from a classic, but Graham Harper is able to direct a reasonably exciting runaround that serves as a nice lead into the season finale. It also does work as a nice introduction to the Cybermen to a modern audience. It does a great job of bringing them to the new series, but could have done with a tad more polish to really excel, just like the previous story. However, I do really believe this two-parter is underrated and doesn't actually get the credit it truly deserves, as writer Tom McCrae does an excellent job with what isn't actually a really easy story to tell. Interestingly, at 8 is the first part of that story, Rise of the Cybermen. For me, the Cybermen are one of the very best concepts to come out of Doctor Who, and to see them reintroduced into the modern series in this way, while not perfectly, was still a very great sight to see. Although I don't really agree with the whole invention of the elite catchphrase for the Cybermen, it's still kind of cool, and does act as a really great cliffhanger to the episode. I must say, fair play to Tom McCrae once again, he does a great job, but I must say this first part is actually a lot stronger than the second. Tooth and Claw is next on this list, taking the 7th spot. Tooth and Claw is a fantastic little gem, an episode that at least acknowledges how annoying Rose and the 10th Doctor can be together, which is something. And it's a pretty damn fine blend of the classic historical monster and base under siege templates the Doctor is quite familiar with, and if anything is a really exciting runaround. It's a fun, upbeat adventure, and is one of the stronger episodes from a rocky second series. A very strong episode indeed, and always one I enjoy revisiting. In the 6th position is the first part of the two-part finale, Army of Ghosts. This episode spent a lot of time building up the conflict that takes place in the next chapter. The pacing was excellent, and the revelation of both the Daleks and the Cybermen was extremely well handled and brilliantly realised. The surprising return of Mickey and the official introduction of the Torchwood Institute helps elevate this episode as one of the more entertaining of the series. It builds on many of the carefully developed threads that were deployed throughout the series, and it all comes together incredibly well. At 5 is the second part of the finale, Doomsday. While this two-parter isn't the strongest, it is certainly very enjoyable and does really provide a plethora of character development. Tennant and Piper especially stand out with some great performances here, especially in that final scene on the beach. A really great end to the series. In at 4 is The Impossible Planet, written by Matthew Jones. This is an extremely well written and directed episode with some awesome visuals and an excellent sound design. As with most of the episodes in Series 2, the storyline feels very familiar, but it is presented with ample flair and charm, and it does stand out. Taking the 3rd spot in this ranking is the second part of that two-parter, The Satan Pit. This is an episode that understands it doesn't need to tell you anything, as long as it can show you all you need to know about the people who inhabit the world. Maybe the entire two-parter isn't an unqualified triumph, but it's still damn impressive, and it's an exhilarating example of what Doctor Who can be at its most fearless, and man do I love it. This story is among my favourite of all-time classics. It's a creepy, unnerving episode with some great scares, but also some great characterisation, a great script, great acting, and great production values. The Uda are a great introduction, as an alien race used essentially as slaves, and are really fantastic here. The human characters, especially, are all particularly excellent, and all the dialogue is of a really high standard. The story is thrilling and intelligent. It's a real top-notch Doctor Who episode that can stand along the greatest episode of all time for me. In second in this ranking is School Reunion, the episode in which we introduced the fabulous Sarah Jane Smith to the series, written by Toby Whithouse. Apart from the rather cringeworthy bitchiness between Rose and Sarah Jane, I honestly don't have many other qualms with this episode. There's a reason why Toby Whithouse is still one of my favourite Who writers of the modern series, and this was just the very beginning for him, and is arguably still one of his very best. Just for reintroducing both Sarah Jane and K9, this episode is certainly one of my favourites of not just the series, but the entirety of the modern series. But it doesn't take my top spot, however. Taking the top spot for my ranking in the second series is Stephen Moffat penned episode The Girl in the Fireplace. The effect of Girl in the Fireplace is just dazzling. It is alive with inventiveness, so radiant in its confidence, and the execution, courtesy of director Euros Lyn and Stephen Moffat as writer, results in one of the most attractive looking Doctor Who stories ever. Should Doctor Who really be attempting a love story? You might think not. But the success of this episode is a good indicator of why Davies and Moffat have continued with the same approach countless times since. Personally, I don't think it has been bettered since, and it has become a little old hat, especially with the companions. But the accomplishment of The Girl in the Fireplace does at least explain why they are both chasing its success ever since. Tennant and Miles share sizzling chemistry, as is usually the case with off-screen lovers who work on screen together, but there isn't really a performance out of place here, and this is actually one of Rose's high spots in Series 2, despite the fact that she is kept out of the action for the most part, and this is a very bad series for her overall. It's a treat for the senses. This episode whips up the imagination and emotions into a giddy frenzy, and cements Moffat's name as one to watch. Excellent stuff. So that was my episode ranking for Series 2. Next up on the channel will be my review of the Christmas special, The Runaway Bride, coming next Sunday. After that, the Series 3 reviews will commence. Updates will be available via the community section as always, so make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to stay up to date. Thank you very much for watching. I shall see you all next time.